Hi everyone and welcome to this week's video. I fancied having a little bit of a palette cleanse because at the minute I'm working on my forthcoming sewing pattern, the dolly top. It's been a little bit intense the last few weeks and dolly top everywhere I look, samples grading coming out my ears, and I just wanted to do something completely different just to break up what I'm doing. So I thought I'm going to make myself a nice blouse. I haven't got many blouses. I don't think I have, but I just fancied making a blouse, and I wanted to go through my pile of fabrics that we've all got them, where you've got a nice amount of fabric but there's not enough to make a full garment, but you're keeping it just in case. Well, I've got a cubby hole full of that type of fabric, and I just thought, let's see what I can make with maybe a couple of fabrics. So I haven't got much. I've got some flat, it's like antique white, flat double gauze, probably 1/4 metre of that. And then I've got this pretty Ditsy floral cotton, and I've probably got 1.5 metres of it, but not quite, because I've already cut into some of it, as you can see. So I've cut into a chunk of it, but there should be enough with the two. Here we go, on cue. But there should be enough with the two together to make a blouse. So I'm going to show you what I've got as an idea, something that I've drawn. I thought I'd share it with you, take you through the process of how I come to draft said pattern, and let's see what it looks like at the end. That's if I ever get to the end. So let's go over to the cutting table and let's just see what I can come up with. That's me recording. So this is the design that I've come up with, and I've based it on like a vintage style blouse that I liked. So based on this picture here, I really liked that angle there, the gathering underneath the bust. I quite like the grown on sleeves, but I'm wanting something with a sleeve, I think. So I've kind of taken some of the detailing, the yoke part I suppose, and I'm going to add like a little bit of a peplum so it kind of sits over my skirt or over my jeans. I love the ruffles. You can never have enough ruffles. The majority of things I make either have a flounce, a frill or a ruffle, and I really like the ruffle, but I don't like a v-neck on me, so I'm changing it to like the round neck. So I've just took a couple of the elements. That's the whole idea of being inspired by things. That's what I always say. You don't copy, you be inspired, and then you take elements from it and make it into your own. Hence what I've got there. So there is the front. So there's the front, and I'm going to be using these two fabrics that I showed you in the intro. Now they've both been laundered, washed and dried, ready to be used. Hopefully there's enough to make this blouse. That's my attempt at drawing the fabric, just so you get an idea, and that's the white, because I haven't got enough to do the whole blouse, I don't think, and even if I did, I wanted to do something like this with a contrasting top part. And I show you the back. The back is straight with buttons down the back just to that point. That's the theory. If I've got enough, add a ruffle on the bottom, and then I've also kind of would like to do a stripe of white and then the ruffle on the end just to break up the sleeve. Not sure, but that's my plan. That's my design based on that other design I showed you, and like I say, I haven't got an awful lot, so let's just see what I can create using these blocks. So a disclaimer here before we get going, this is not a tutorial and it's not a how-to video as such. It's more like, what on earth is she doing kind of thing, and just watching me trying to fathom it out. So because I haven't got a clue really, I've just got the image there on my iPad and I'm literally working it out as I go along. So I'm going to make loads of mistakes. You're going to see me doing things and you're going to think, what's she doing? Probably won't be able to follow me. Please don't be sitting there trying to take notes, because this is not for that. This is more for you just to sit back and really watch the process of me trying to fathom it out. Okay, so now I've got that out of the way. I've just used the hip length dress block with the darts, so I am just going to be basing my design from these blocks. So I'm just drawing around the front and the back of these blocks that I've got. So I've cut my pieces out, and here you can see I'm cutting the bottom part off, and I'm planning to pivot that bottom part of the dart into kind of like an A-line peplum style, but as I'm adding the seam allowance there, I'm realising I'm not sure this is going to work, so put that to one side while I think about that and work on the top. So obviously under strict supervision as per normal with my cat, I'm deciding where I want my line to be, that angled line, and then I realised that I need to move my darts so I can create that fullness. You need to obviously move your darts elsewhere if you're wanting to create that additional fullness. So I'm cutting into my darts and then pivoting my darts, and then I'm still fathoming out whether I like that angle or not. And obviously Geordie's just a pain in the proverbial, he's got to be in. But anyway, gritting my teeth, move the dart from the bottom into the side, you can see there, and then gone back to the bottom part of the bodice because I still can't fathom out what I'm doing. So sorry, this is the process I go through. I did my seam allowance because obviously when you cut things apart you have to add seam allowance, and then that's where I realise it's not really going to work the way I had it envisioned. So I've gone back to the top part of the bodice and closing that remainder dart to give me the fullness that I want to go below the bust area. And obviously it's a tiny amount because I've lost some of the dart in the bottom part of the bodice. So now I'm doing some slash and spread to get like additional fullness for what I want. So I've just drawn some lines in the direction that I'd like the fullness to go, like the flow of the fullness kind of thing. Listen to me, sound like I know what I'm talking about. And then I am just making the slashes that I've made a spread of about 2 centimetres, I think. But I think if I do it again, I would probably do the spread distance maybe a little bit more, just that fraction more gather, maybe 2.5 centimetres per spread. But here I've done 2 centimetres and I'm just adding on my seam allowance on the bottom. And then I'll cut that out, and I think I'll be quite happy with that. So that's the top part kind of complete. Just trimming off the extra bits of paper. I'm using a fine tip felt tip pen so you can see what I'm doing, but normally I use a pencil. But this is just so you can kind of see what I'm doing, even though you probably will have no idea what I am doing, because even I don't know what I'm doing half the time. So mark the centre fold, centre front fold, and mark a notch where I want it to be gathering along that area there. So I'm kind of happy with that, and that's will then fit down onto the bottom part of the blouse there. And then obviously Geordie's tail just is constantly in the way. And then that's going to gather into the bottom part, and then this is where I'm thinking, is it going to work? I wanted a little bit more A-line look at the bottom, but here we go, I'm trying to fathom it all out, and in the end I decided just to leave the darts in but not use the darts to give me that little bit of fullness. But in hindsight, which is a wonderful thing, I think I probably should have stitched the darts to give me that little bit more fitted look. So if I make this blouse again, I'm going to try it with the darts, leave the darts in and actually sew the darts. But here I am on the back and faffing about trying to create that extra fullness in the back, but I didn't need to do this in the end. I just left it. I did this, but I decided no, it was going to be too much. So then I went back on to my front and then tried it again with maybe splitting the bottom dart. Realised, nah, that's not going to, well, it would work, but it's not the look I was looking for. So here I'm thinking, This is the process. I go through an awful lot of paper and sharpen many pencils. But this is my process, everyone. This is how I do it. As I've always said, I am not schooled. I haven't been to fashion college. I have no training whatsoever. This is all what I've learned myself. So everything I do, I literally fathom it out as I go along. And I'll just keep going till I perfect it. So here I am again, marking my angle, second time. I think this is version 3 now I'm on to. There you can see the dart in the bottom of that piece there. That's the dart I left it in, but as I said, I think I would stitch that dart just to give it that little bit more shaping, because my idea for me A-line kind of peplum at the bottom didn't really map out. It probably would, but as I say, I couldn't fathom it out. So here I am slashing and spreading again, but I didn't need to because it's turned out exactly the same as draft 1. This is me trying to work it all out again. So like I say, I just keep going until I think I'm happy that it's going to be okay. And I always now, anything like this, I will always make a toile or 2 or 3. So I'm now back onto the back bodice piece, and I'm obviously going to cut it in 2 because I wanted the 2 separate fabrics. So I've just cut across there the same, so it lines up with the front, and added my seam allowance. And now I've got to fathom out the button placket. Now the button plackets are really simple to add, but every time it bamboozles me. Every single time I do a button placket. I don't know why, it's like my brain does not want to function. I know how to do it, I know your diameter of your button, you got to add the facing part, blah blah blah, I know how to do it, but every time my brain won't work. So here I am, fathoming it out. Okay, so just thought I'd quickly show you my toile. I would have liked the angle to be a little bit more acute. It looks a little bit more curved on the body rather than like a proper angle. But I quite like it though, and I quite like the gathering. Obviously going to have the sleeves. Well, it's going to be these sleeves, funnily enough. So the sleeves are going to be like this, but obviously the cuff will be different, but the sleeves, I think I'm just going to use these sleeves. And I managed to get it on over my head okay, so there's plenty of room with the button placket. Yeah, so that's so far today. It is now, oh my lord, 8:10. Didn't realise the time, so I'm going to call it a day for today. and then sew it up tomorrow with those two gorgeous fabrics. See you tomorrow. Right, so I have tweaked it since the last time I showed you what I was doing, and I have, there's a centre front seam there, but it won't be there. I was just using up my toile fabric. I didn't want to cut another piece out, so I put a seam in, but there won't be a seam in, I don't think, even though I quite like that seam. Don't know. The plan is not to have a seam, cut it on the fold, but I quite like the feature of that. Anyway, I digress. So I have tweaked it so it's a little bit more fitted. I just thought it was a little bit too flary here, so that's nicer. But because I've done it where it's a little bit more fitted, I have got an opening at the back still, but I've only got it halfway to the seam. So what I might do is, because I got it on over my head okay, but it was a little bit, you know, I had to wriggle in a little bit. So what I might do is just extend the button placket. Here I am. Extend the button placket all the way down the back, and then you won't have that issue. But yeah, I really like it, and I've just got to take a smidge off the neckline. I'm only going to take a little bit off. I'm maybe going to take a centimetre off the neckline, but I'm fairly happy with that. I love how it just flares out. It's just like a fitted dress, but made into a top in a way. So, and I like the gathers. I think the gathers lovely, really flattering and really feminine. I like the way it comes to a point there. Obviously, this is just my toile, so I unpicked the original one of these and left all this as it was, and then put this section back on, so my gathers are a little bit tatty, but you get the drift. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'll have the button band going all the way down the back, so I'll just have to adjust the back pattern piece, and then I'm going to cut it out, hopefully in these two fabrics as planned. So adjust the back and let's do some sewing. So I hope you're still with me at this point and you haven't lost the plot trying to follow me. Just enjoy watching me do this, seriously. Don't be taking notes, please. Yeah, so I'm just adding some strips of interfacing along the button band, along both sections of the top of the bodice, the bottom part of the bodice, both centre back sections, if you know what I mean. And then I'm going to, here he is on cue, I'm going to then sew the bottom and the top pieces together along that waist seam line kind of thing. And then press everything, press as you go, always press as you go. And then I'm then going to work on the front. So the front, obviously I need to set my machine to the longest stitch length there and do 2 rows of gathering. So I'm just going to do my 2 rows up to that point there, stop and start, and then onto the next part, stop and start. So I've got like 2 separate areas up to that V point kind of thing. Gather them and then fit them down into the bottom part of the front there. Just the gathers, then I'm just going to stitch, overlock, press as usual, always press. And then I decided to do a couple of rows of top stitching there on each join because I thought that might just finish it off and give a little bit of detailing. So next, mark my little back shoulder darts, and here I'm marking them on the right side of the fabric. I wasn't obviously concentrating, but when I got to the machine I realised and adjusted it. to the wrong side, and sewed those shoulder darts. They're quite cute, the shoulder darts. I don't often put them in, but they do give that nice little bit of extra shaping sometimes when you need it. So shoulder seams together onto the side seams, matching up everything as I go, pin, sew, overlock. So next up onto the sleeves. Like I say, I've just used the sleeve pattern for the blouse that I'm wearing. So I've just cut them out and stitched the underarm seams, overlocked and pressed them. And this is where I'm trying to fathom out this idea in my head. There's the ruffle, so it's double the width of the sleeve for the ruffle. And the white, the cream, the antique white fabric is for that, you know, that section to differentiate between the two. And in my head I was thinking, well, I don't know what I was thinking. And then when I cut them out, I thought, well, that's not going to work because you've obviously got a fold, so I'm going to have to stitch them back together. So I cut them down the middle, but then when I was stitching them back together, I should have really added a little bit more seam allowance onto those strips. So next time I do it, I'd add a little bit, make them a fraction wider, because I had to use just the edge of my sewing machine foot to sew everything together on this section. So pull the gathers for the little ruffle and then sandwich them, the two white strips, like kind of sandwich the pieces in between. And then once I did that, then attach the sandwiched piece to the bottom of the sleeve. I'm sure there was a much easier way of doing it, but I got there in the end, but it was a little bit of a faff, I think. Anyway, I got the sleeves put together by the skin of my teeth, as I say, because those strips were really, really slim. Moving on to the neck ruffle. I do like a neck ruffle, so this is just a ruffle, double the width of my neckline measurement there. And I was just cutting some bias strips just so I could finish off the neckline. So neckline all finished, ruffle all stitched on, the bias, and just got to finish it off with pressing under my hem, and then just finish off the button placket there. Just did a little bit of a top stitch, and then I've just got to add 7 buttonholes and 7 buttons. So the top is just about finished. I worked all the way up till 9 o'clock last night. I was going to keep going. I thought it would be best to do the buttonholes in the calm of the next day and in the daylight. So all I've got to do now is the buttonholes. I've just marked my placements. I've just worked out where I'd like them to be, and they're every 7.5 centimetres apart. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 buttons. So 7 buttonholes to tackle. So hopefully the machine will play nicely and do them all nicely. Buttonholes, sew on the wooden buttons, and then this little number is finished. So here she is on the mannequin. I didn't clip that curve there, so I need to clip the curve. That's why it's not sitting right. There's a few things I would alter next time. I'm not quite keen on that angle, the way it comes down and then straight across. I should really have maybe swooped that angle a little bit. But apart from that, I really like it. I'm not overly fussed on the double gauze. I think double gauze, it's a lovely, warm, soft fabric to wear, but it does tend to go a little bit like dishclothing. It's got no like structures kind of thing, so I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. I love it, I really do like it. It's turned out almost like my iPad design, and love it. And obviously I've only used some scraps, so I can't complain. But if I did it again, I think broderie anglaise or a cotton dobby would have been nicer, or anything other than double gauze. But because I use my scraps, I'm not complaining, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Oh, and I haven't done the hem. I folded up the hem. I just need to sew the hem, and I think it's going to go great with my denim skirt, with my jeans tucked in. I had another inch on the length, and I must make a note on the pattern. I'm glad I did add the inch, because obviously it's giving me just that extra length if I want to tuck it in. But because it's like almost fitted, it's got that lovely shape to it, so I can wear it over my jeans rather than tucked in. Love the neckline. Let me know what you think. Well, the sleeves have turned out really nice, but I don't know what I was doing there. A little bit of a convoluted way of doing this. I could have just done one layer, but I wanted to do like the 2 layers, and I wanted to try and sandwich it in between. Well, it's worked out fine, but I don't know whether I did that the right way. I think I did it right. It's just I don't know whether I left myself enough room to work with. I wasn't using 1 centimetre seam allowance because I didn't leave myself enough room, so I was literally using the edge of my footer. But it's turned out right, but I'm sure there might be a better way of doing it. Quite pleased. So from a simple design to here it is in real life. So obviously I'm going to do the buttonholes, sew on the buttons, finish the hem, and then I'll try it on and you can tell me what you think. But yeah, so thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed watching me go from a design, a drawing, a sketch, and then working it all out on the pattern paper, tweaking, making mistakes, tweaking again, then doing some toiles, then tweaking the toiles, and then coming up with the finished product. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think, and I shall see you on my next video. Bye for now.